we often look back at, ancient civilizations, and maybe subconsciously we use our modern perspective. We might think their tools were primitive or their tech was basic. We assume life was just a struggle for survival. But what if that's not just incomplete, but maybe fundamentally wrong? What if, even with what we call rudimentary technology, our ancestors did things? Well, feats of engineering, navigation, sheer courage that rival our own achievements. Especially something as, frankly, terrifying as crossing huge open oceans. So today in this deep dive, we're really on a mission to reevaluate how we see early human capabilities. We're going to plunge into some recent scientific experiments, detailed simulations too, that are finally showing the incredible ingenuity of Paleolithic people. We're talking about epic sea journeys like 30,000 years ago, navigating treacherous waters between modern Taiwan and Japan. It's a story that really challenges our assumptions.
It absolutely does. I mean, think about how humanity spread from Africa maybe 300,000 years ago. Slowly, yes, but inevitably reaching every corner of the globe, including these incredibly remote islands. It just forces us to rethink things. This wasn't just, accidental drifting or passive migration. To cross major ocean barriers, especially with the tech they had tens of thousands of years ago, well, that required deliberate strategy, planning, and honestly, an audacious spirit of exploration. It points to a level of sophistication we're maybe only now starting to fully grasp.
Okay, so let's unpack the sheer scale of the challenge for a second. Imagine these early people 30,000 years ago thinking about crossing an ocean. They had no metal tools for building anything, no maps, definitely no GPS.
Right.
Their entire toolkit, it was stone axes, adzes, things they'd carefully made themselves. And with those, they had to cut down a massive tree, a really big one, right? Big enough for a seaworthy boat. And then painstakingly hollowed it out into a canoe. I mean, I sometimes struggle putting together flat pack furniture. And they're essentially building ocean vessels with rocks. That alone is it's a monumental act of engineering, of knowledge, patience, unbelievable strength.
And the specific barrier they faced. It was truly formidable. The East China Sea, we're talking a journey over 100 miles from Ushibi in eastern Taiwan to Japan's Yonaguni Island, part of the Ryukyu chain. And the main adversary, the force making it so tough, is the Kuroshio Current.
Ah, the Kuroshio.
Yeah, it's not just strong, it's one of the world's most powerful currents. Think Gulf Stream level. And what's wild is, based on Paleo-ocean models, 30,000 years ago, it's probably even more powerful than today.
Wow.
Imagine a river, maybe 60 miles wide, flowing so fast it could easily swamp a modern yacht. 30,000 years ago, it was a monster, a genuine barrier.
It's one thing to talk about the numbers, the models, but to really get the challenge, think about the psychological side. Just imagine setting out into that huge, unknowable expanse in a boat you carved by hand. No safety nets, no rescue teams waiting. Just you, your small crew, and the infinite ocean. What incredible courage, what immense curiosity must have driven them to even think about such a journey, let alone do it, especially knowing a return trip was, well, likely impossible. So how did modern scientists even start to figure this out, this historical mystery? They turned to this really interesting field called experimental archaeology.
Right, recreating the past to test it.
Exactly. It's basically recreating ancient tech, ancient methods to see if hypotheses hold up. The inspiration, maybe not surprisingly, came from iconic trips like Thor Heyerdahl's Kon-Tiki voyage back in 47, crossing the Pacific on a balsa raft.
Exactly. That's a classic example. And the core of this particular experiment was led by Yusuke Kaifu, an anthropologist at the University of Tokyo, and his team. Their approach was incredibly careful, methodical. They simulated the methods Paleolithic people would have used, right down to using replicas of 30,000-year-old stone tools, an axe and an adze.
Wow, using the actual replica tools.
Yes. And with those, they painstakingly made a 25-foot dugout canoe, about 7.5 meters. They named it Sujin, carved it from one Japanese cedar tree, felled up at Japan's Noto Peninsula. And importantly, this wasn't their first try at making an ancient boat. They'd already tried reed rafts, bamboo rafts, and those earlier attempts failed, which was crucial, actually. It showed those materials were just too slow, not tough enough, and critically, they just couldn't beat the Kuroshio Current.
So the failures pointed the way.
Precisely. It proved pretty conclusively that a dugout canoe was the most plausible, maybe the only plausible craft for such a hard journey.
Okay, so they built the canoe, then came the actual voyage, which sounds, honestly, like something from an adventure story.
It really does.
A crew, 4 men and 1 woman, paddled the Sujim from eastern Taiwan, aiming for Yonaguni Island. The trip took over 45 hours. 145 grueling hours, covering about 140 miles, maybe 225 kilometers, across open sea.
Just imagine.
They fought that relentless Kuroshio Current. Dealt with extreme fatigue, apparently. At points they were so wiped out, they just had to drift for hours.
Even with safety boats nearby.
Right, even with 2 escort craft. And the amazing part, they navigated purely by the sun, the stars, the feel of the ocean swells, just like those prehistoric people would have.
The focus that must have taken.
The sheer willpower. Incredible.
And that experience, it really deepened their respect for those ancient mariners. Yusuke Kaifu himself said, let me find the quote. Here. Through the project with many failures, we have learned the difficulties of crossing the ocean. And this experience gives a deep respect for our Paleolithic ancestors. It really drives home that this wasn't just science. It was a profound human experience. It highlighted the immense challenges.
So here's where it gets really interesting for me. What's truly revolutionary isn't just proving the journey was possible. It's how it was possible. The experiment, plus these companion studies you mentioned, they revealed something critical. These journeys weren't just accidents, not passive drifting, hoping to bump into land.
Exactly.
The evidence suggests they were incredibly deliberate, conscious, strategic acts. So how did the data make that shift? From maybe they drifted to they planned this.
Right. That's where the numerical simulations come in, led by physical oceanographer Yulin Chang. They were absolutely vital. His team ran just countless simulations, testing different starting points, different seasons, different paddling strategies under modern and ancient ocean conditions.
Okay.
And what the simulation showed was, well, it was astonishing. First, launching from northern Taiwan gave a much better chance of success than starting further south. Location mattered.
Makes sense.
But even more critically, they showed that the ancient voyagers couldn't just paddle towards their target island.
Oh, how so?
They actually needed to paddle slightly southeast of where they wanted to go.
Southeast.
To go northwest.
Yeah.
Yes. To compensate for that powerful westward push of the Kuroshio Current. This isn't just about paddling hard. It points to a sophisticated, really intimate knowledge of how the ocean works. Understanding how to use the current, not just fight against it.
Wow. That's strategic.
Absolutely. Yulin Chang put it perfectly. He said, the Kuroshio Current is generally considered dangerous to navigate. I thought if you entered it, you could only drift aimlessly. But the results of our simulations went far beyond what I had imagined.
It completely flipped their assumptions.
Completely.
It's easy to view prehistoric people through this, survivalist lens. Their main drive was just staying alive, finding food.
Yeah.
But what does this kind of calculated journey, a one-way trip, undertaken with that kind of sophisticated knowledge, tell us about the human spirit back then, that drive to explore? What must have pushed them knowing the risks?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it really points to a fundamental human spirit, something that doesn't change much over time. Kaifu's insights highlight this. He said something like, these canoes are fast and durable enough to make the crossing, but that's only half the story.
Right, the human element.
Exactly. He said, those male and female pioneers must have all been experienced paddlers with effective strategies and a strong will to explore the unknown. That's the crucial bit, the strong will to explore.
Yeah.
They didn't have maps or, detailed knowledge of flow patterns that would make a return journey easy. That kind of understanding only came much, much later.
So it really was a one-way commitment.
It demanded a whole different level of resolve, foresight, and, a sophisticated understanding of their environment. They weren't just reacting, they were mastering it.
So if we pull all this together, what does it mean for how we see history, our history? I mean, our ancestors weren't just primitive beings, scraping by. They were intelligent, brave explorers, master strategists who willingly took huge risks. They had ambitions. They were, basically like us.
Yes. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it really reinforces that profound respect we were talking about, the respect gained through this research. These people were, in every meaningful sense, the astronauts of their time.
That's a great way to put it.
Facing unimaginable challenges on the open ocean with incredible willpower, ingenuity, and we see echoes of this spirit elsewhere too, right? Like the ancient Polynesians, navigating the entire Pacific with no maps.
Using stars, swells, winds.
Exactly. Using incredibly sophisticated signs, visible land, stars, planets, swells, winds. This deep dive into Paleolithic voyages, it just adds another amazing chapter to that whole story of ancient human navigation.
It makes that statement from Kaifu even more powerful, that Our Paleolithic ancestors were real challengers. Like us today, they had to undertake strategic challenges to advance.
It's truly humbling, isn't it, when you really think about it?
Mm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the core insight, the thing we're left with, is pretty profound and humbling. Our ancient ancestors, living 30,000 years ago, had this incredible mix of ingenuity, strategic thinking, and just sheer courage. It let them conquer barriers that we, even with all our modern tech, would still find incredibly daunting. It completely reframes how we should see our distant past.
Definitely. And this research, it really deepens our understanding of human resilience, our innate drive to explore. It leaves us with a pretty compelling thought, doesn't it? What other impossible things did our ancestors pull off that we just haven't fully appreciated yet? What can we really learn about that enduring human spirit exploration, resilience from these ancient mariners? Their drive pushed them across horizons we can barely imagine. We really hope this deep dive sparked some new thoughts for you. Maybe even changed your perspective a little on just how incredible our distant ancestors truly were. And if you found this deep dive as fascinating as we did, please be sure to subscribe to the deep dive wherever you get your listening. And hey, we'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this episode. What stood out to you? Let us know. Share your insights with us online.